Hello again. Thank you so much for joining me. We are on episode 4 of this season of the Inner Success Story. And this season, we're talking about toxic relationships. And today, I want to talk to you about narcissism and narcissists. So, within my world, this is a word that is bandied about, excuse me one second, very frequently and not always in the right way. So it's become a label that people will throw around for behaviors that they don't like. But narcissism is something so much deeper than people realize. And there's not as many narcissists out there as labels being bandied around about certain people's behaviors and how they behave. And what have you. And I just really wanted just to take some time today to talk a little bit more about it, because there is a big difference between somebody having some narcissist traits and actually being a narcissist and having that label and having not earned that label, because it makes it sound like it's a prize or a good thing, and it certainly isn't. But there are a lot of people in relationships who can certainly exhibit some of the traits of being a narcissist, but there are some really, really key differences that I think it is important. So first of all, when a relationship is not going well, when a relationship doesn't have two people supporting each other to be the best versions of themselves, and even the best relations will go through periods where this doesn't happen, even those relationships will sometimes have toxic traits between them. There will be times where somebody's behaviours become quite poor. So my example that I utilise for this is, although my marriage with my first husband became abusive, he would be quite frightening and completely change personality when he had been drinking past a certain point. But I became toxic in that when he was sober and felt that because he couldn't remember what had happened, he couldn't apologise, I became quite toxic and punished him essentially for what had happened when he'd been drinking. But I did that when he was sober, because when he'd been drinking, he was a person not to mess with, and I didn't want to put myself in an even more precarious situation. And B, had I have done that when he had been drinking, he wouldn't have remembered. And for me, I really wanted him to understand the hurt that I was experiencing. I wanted him to understand a little bit about what that felt like. So we can all have toxic traits. We can all be incredibly selfish. We can all be incredibly self-absorbed. We can not understand the other person's point of view. We can shut people down. We can be dismissive. We can be very defensive. There are lots of things within a relationship, lots of behaviours that can happen, which happen as a normal breakdown of communication in a relationship. My example of my parents' relationship was that my mum shouted a lot. My dad always backed down. My mum could say really, really horrible things, but because they were said in the heat of the moment, had full expectations that you would then forget about it. But of course, I knew from the receiving end that there are things that you can't unsay, and there are things that the other person can't unhear. So there are things that throughout my relationship with my mum, I have carried, because although she said them in the heat of the moment, I strongly believe that it was at that point that there was no filter and the real truth came out. Now, I'm not saying that that is the case for absolutely everybody, but I do think that a lot of the time when we say something and blurt it out, we actually really mean it, and then it's said and the other person can't unhear it. So although my mum has a lot of traits of being narcissistic, it's not consistently all the time. It will be when she's, well, in hindsight, when she was really struggling. But she was very self-absorbed. She was very what about me, and she can still be very much like it now. So unfortunately, we've lost my dad's sister this week, and that has been really hard. But she was about, what about me? What about the impact on me, etc., etc. Whereas actually, there were other people whose needs and desires would come before her, and she still finds that quite hard. But in terms of whether she is a narcissist, I would say no, because actually she can be empathetic. She can think about other people. She can be kind. She can be incredibly thoughtful. She can be she can fulfill other people's needs. So she's not a narcissist. She just can have narcissistic traits when she's in that kind of place, when she's in that kind of mood where things aren't happening. So let's talk a little bit about narcissism. And there's so much information out there. I wanted to make it as compact and straight as I possibly could, because actually, although there's a lot of stuff that goes with narcissism, there are some key traits. Now, these key traits make somebody a narcissist only if they cannot move away from these. So, no ability to apologise or self-reflect at all, ever. Nothing's ever their fault. Everything's always down to other people. They can't take a moment and go, oh, maybe that wasn't okay, maybe this, maybe that. They will think about, well, this was my intention and they've read it wrong, and blah, blah, blah. But this isn't just momentary behaviour. This isn't just things that happen in the flash of a pan. This is always. They always feel like they have to be very defensive, they can't apologise for things, and they can't self-reflect. So if you are in any form of relationship with somebody who you think is a narcissist and they can at some points give a heartfelt thank you, then not narcissist. Narcissistic behaviour, not a narcissist. Self before all. Narcissists really struggle to think of other people. They really, really struggle to consider the impact of things on other people before anything else. They are very straight down the line. They are very the impacts that everything has on them. They don't have the ability to show empathy for other people in a meaningful way. They may have worked out some ways of masking, so they may know it is polite to ask how somebody is. It is polite to check in with people, but they won't be able to process that in an empathetic way. It's about the impact on them and forget everybody else all the time, never able to go beyond that. It's consistent. That's the main thing. Those behaviours are consistent. They do not chop and change. If you have a meaningful apology, meaningful empathy, meaningful conversation about your thoughts and feelings or somebody else's thoughts and feelings, they have narcissistic traits. They are not a narcissist. They see no benefit whatsoever, are not interested. It's not on their radar whatsoever to see the benefit in growth. They do not see the benefit in personal development. They do not see the benefit in making changes. They do not feel that they should be any different from how they are. Now, caveat to that, I think the most successful relationships are probably, and this is my belief, I'm not saying that this is scientific at all, this is my belief. I think the best relationships are because there is a real match. I believe it's because you help each other grow and learn. I believe it is where you can take stock of your behaviours, your reactions, your responses, and work out what you want to do differently. I believe that personal development, once you are on that journey, you become low-level obsessed with understanding more about your brain, understanding more about your mind, understanding more about where your reactions come from, what's the story underneath. No narcissist feels that they should change for anybody else. No narcissist feels that they need to make any changes to their behaviour. And I am very much for strong self-concept to understand this is who I am. I'm going to take up my space in the world. What we're talking about is when that behaviour impacts negatively on somebody else, you would then question, are they not my person? Is there something I need to change? I do ultimately think relationships work well where you don't have the desire to change the other person. You want to help them be their best selves, but that's because they have a desire to be their best self, but they need your help and support kind of getting there. People who are narcissists believe that they are absolutely fine as they are. They don't think about the impact sometimes their behaviors can have on other people or other situations. They are very, very straight down the line. Now, you could say that is the ultimate version of self-concept, that they won't dim their light. They won't do anything. If it makes people feel uncomfortable, that's up to them. They won't do anything to change. And that is a really strong self-concept. But what we're trying to build is a self-concept that also understands the energy and the people around you. So you listen to what other people are saying so that you can understand, you ask questions, you're interested. That's not the case for somebody who is narcissistic. They don't have really any interest in other people. So when it comes to narcissism, can you see the difference between having these certain traits which we can show when we're not happy, when our needs aren't being met, when we're feeling tired? I mean, for me, like the worst mix of me that you can have is me cold, tired, and hungry. If you get that version of me, I'm probably not very pleasant. Fortunately, that's few and far between. But, you know, we all have parts of our personality where we are not best placed to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. But narcissists, it's consistent. It's not a bit here and there, and then there is empathy and there is thoughtfulness and there is this and there is that. There might be some masking. That's where it gets a bit more complex, but I don't want to go into that today. But essentially, if you have got somebody in your life who you are considering is a narcissist, it is very different dependent on those personality traits and whether they can veer away from them. Now, just to say, if you understand that you are in a relationship or have a relationship with somebody in your life who truly is a narcissist, I want to be really clear with you. That is never going to change. Either you move yourself away from that relationship or you accept and have no expectations outside what that person can provide for you. But you are not going to get empathy. You are not going to get personal development journey for them. You are not going to get thoughtfulness and all of those sorts of things on a real impactful level, because it will only be masking. It's not going to change. So if you are with somebody that you recognize cannot apologize, cannot take ownership and responsibility, cannot see their flaws, cannot understand why they upset and annoy other people, they probably don't have many friends or a close family and what have you, because it's very challenging to have a relationship with that person. I'm certainly not saying you should leave them if they're your partner, or you should go no contact and what have you if they're a friend or family. But I do think you should think about how you manage that situation, and can you not allow it, that's not the word I'm looking for, but can you fit around it? Because that's the only way that you can have an ongoing relationship, is to have no expectations of that person to meet those needs. It's also, you know, it's very challenging because you want to feel that potentially you can rub some of these corners off, but it simply isn't possible. You probably could influence them to mask a little bit, but then you would know that none of it is really real and heartfelt. If you want to contact me to let me know that you're experiencing this and you need some help, please do so, because navigating a relationship with a narcissist is incredibly challenging, particularly because it's unlikely that that person fits your values now. Might have done when you first got together, so maybe they liked to scoop you up and they liked to be the strong person who kind of carried you, but that will have been very different perhaps to who you are now. But they haven't changed. You are the one who's grown. You are the one who's changed. You are the one who has moved forward. They are still exactly that person. So if you need any support with this, please do let me know, and I can give you some further specific advice, chats, whatever you need, we can have a chat about it and work it out. But wherever possible, for most of us, living with a narcissist or having a narcissist in your life requires quite significant emotional distance, at least with that person. It's a very difficult situation to work alongside. It's possible, but it will bring more challenge to you than it will do to them. So I hope you found that helpful. And also, if you've been affected by somebody that you have been with who has been a narcissist, or even, extreme narcissistic traits, they're still going to have an impact on you. So if you need any help and support, please do reach out, and I will catch up with you next time for another episode where we'll be talking a little bit more about toxic relationships, and really starting to open your eyes a little bit more to the impact that those relationships have and how to rebuild after them. Thank you so much, and I will chat to you soon. Take care.